I want to show you two ways to deal with diversity. One is the wrong way, I reckon, and the other is the right way. You'll remember a couple of weeks back, the Wiggles announced some new recruits and some new characters. Good on them. They're a great success story and they do wonderful things for kids. Nothing wrong with the Wiggles, but their announcement and the promotions around it all focused on identity, highlighting the racial and cultural backgrounds of their new performers, detailing them to the media and boasting that the new animal characters were non-binary. I mean, why focus on this stuff? Why go with virtue signalling and identity politics, especially when you're targeting kids? It just seemed wrong to me. I'm a fan of the Martin Luther King Jr. doctrine that we judge people by the content of their character rather than the colour of their skin. But the Wiggles used this identity angle for their publicity, saying that they're seeking to inspire a diverse audience with its gender balance and diverse cast. Fruit Salad TV, as they call it, is sure to put a smile on the faces of children all around the world who see themselves reflected on the screen. OK, that's their view. As I explained, I reckon just live the diversity. Just do it. Don't be sanctimonious over it. Don't play identity politics. Which is why I want to show you just a sample of what's been playing on Channel 7's The Voice these past few weeks. If you haven't been watching the program, have a look at this montage.
Walking onto the blind stage.
I was living my normal life. Now I'm in this like big wide world.
Will you marry me? Will you?
Yes.
Now you feel
That is amazing.
Rhea, Guy, I don't like your chances.
Yeah.
Oh, look! My boss has been on Broadway, and we did it all right here. Now they can't tell me.
I'm going to take through Bella to this next round. I think we can all agree that your performance was just so magical and so unique.
Can I give it all I've got?
Who's that bloke?
Nick, do you want to say anything to your sister before she makes her
Can
decision?
you tell that bloke? Every time!
This has to be one of the best performances I've ever done.
OK, so there were teenagers through to people approaching middle age, say. There were gay, straight, white, brown, brindle, whatever people with disabilities, male, female, non-binary, parents, siblings, the whole shooting match, judged by successful artists who themselves come from a wide range of backgrounds and experiences. And you know what? Channel 7, the contestants, the judges, they all made nothing of this. They just revelled in the personal stories and the talents, the amazing talents of everyone involved. It's been brilliant. Diversity in action. No talking about it, no virtue signalling, just doing it, just living it. By the way, don't watch The Voice this Sunday. Record it and watch Sky live with a big lineup. After Chris Smith live on Sunday night, I'll be here at 8 o'clock joining Peter Credlin, Andrew Bolt and Paul Murray for COVID Nation, The Way Out. Should be a great discussion. Now, let me bring in psychologist and commentator Tanveer Ahmed. Tanveer, I don't know whether you've been watching The Voice, but that's the way to deal with diversity, isn't it? You just have diversity. You don't sort of put it in press releases and virtue signal about it all the time.
Well, you're exactly right, Chris. I mean, reality TV in Australia has actually led the diversity charge without any fanfare about it. So similar with MasterChef, and you alluded to The Voice. So they've really led diversity, especially on commercial TV. They easily have the most diverse cast on commercial TV. Yeah, so I think it was great you highlighted that.
You've had a bit of experience in the diversity game yourself. You went for Liberal Party pre-selection, and you bring, a Bangladeshi immigrant Muslim background to the table. But at the time, they were after a woman, I think, in that pre-selection. So, but it's interesting because
you can get trumped. Yeah, the Bangladeshi Muslim thing doesn't necessarily get as far as you'd think.
You need all kinds of diversity. But we're seeing this on the Labor side now because Christina Keneally, herself an immigrant, they're talking about her going for Fowler, and the front runner there for the Labor Party had been a Vietnamese Australian, Tu Lee. And it looks like Christina Keneally might gazump her.
Yeah, these are interesting tensions in diversity, don't they? The white woman versus the ethnic woman. Increasingly, the white woman is actually often quite privileged in these diversity games, but they often lead the charge about diversity. But they're often, one, they're usually women of privilege, and two, they're increasingly bumping off ethnic diversity, males and females. So it's a great example of a white woman essentially overriding people of ethnicity. And it's highly questionable, on the diversity hierarchy, you'd probably imagine Tu Lee probably has far lower levels of privilege than Christina Keneally.
Yeah, it's a funny one. I just want to whack up here. We just saw it a moment ago, a cartoon ahead of time from Tomorrow's Australian by Johannes Link. And he's made a bit of a joke out of this because he's got Christina Keneally coming from her Northern Beaches home there, her island home. Says, no kidding, I'm a boat person too. She's got the big motor cruiser. I don't even know if Christina's got a boat. Well, she probably does if she lives on an island. But yeah, quite another ripper there from Johannes Link in the Australian Tomorrow. Now, speaking of identity, I wanted to talk to you about the anniversary of 9/11 because you've written insightfully about this because, as I just discussed with Andrew Hastie, the war on terror is really a war between Western civilization and Islamist extremists. So it's really drawn out big diversity issues that you've had a fascinating perspective on as someone raised a Muslim and growing up in this country.
Yeah, it was interesting for me because I didn't come from a terribly religious household. So I never really thought of being Muslim as a big part of my identity growing up. But September 11 made it so. It became salient. Like suddenly that was this critical component and you had to almost negotiate it, both personally and politically. So yeah, I'm very interested in looking back over 20 years. And it's interesting thinking we're in the pandemic and arguably in terms of government overreach in the name of safety, part of me does think that terrorism set us up for the pandemic. Like I don't think it softened us up for the pandemic. But in terms of the broader sort of issues around
surrender
Islam,
of personal liberties. You mean
absolutely. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think it softened us up a little in terms of government overreach in the name of safety. But look, in terms of identity, if you're from a Muslim community, there was some heated debates. So how do you live as a Muslim? To what extent should you embrace the Western world? And I think a lot of it is healthy. I know there's been a lot of sort of cries about racism and discrimination, and I don't doubt that that's been a serious issue, particularly people who are overtly Muslim, might have worn hijabs, etc. But I think a critical issue that's happened for this is Western countries have had to go, well, what do we actually care about? What are our values? And even communities who migrate have had to think about, okay, look, we have to really negotiate what do we keep of the past and what do we embrace about the country we've adopted. And I actually think for the most part that's been quite healthy. And I see it even in my own communities now. I do think there's much lesser acceptance for those who might say slag off, Western society or hide out and live much the same way they might have back in their homelands. I don't think that's as acceptable. And I do think for the most part there's no question that political Islam and the extremes of Islam exist, and those debates are there.
Yeah, and we've got
in countries like Turkey, Iran, Pakistan,
and we've got to keep a focus on those issues. We don't want to drop the ball on all of that. Thanks so much for joining us, Tanveer, again. I appreciate it.
Pleasure, mate. Thanks, Chris.